All right, Coffee with Gaz here with Carlos Alayon. Did I say that right? Because I feel like I
That's me.
You're
Alayon,
the only Alayon that I know.
Yeah.
Where's the acento?
On the O, Alayon.
Alayon.
Or, if you're living in New York, it's Alayon.
Depends, right?
Like that,
right? Yeah. I got, for me, it's Gazitua. Sometimes they're confusing with Casatua. And I'm like, oh, you got the restaurant on the beach?
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe.
Sure, man.
Maybe. I got the VIP stuff. But dude, I appreciate you doing this. You're pretty popular, right, nowadays. Like you're in the M&A business,
Yeah.
right? Merge acquisitions on both sides. And me being in the insurance space, obviously, we're connected as far as mutual customers, and I'm in the business world on the commercial side. But it just feels like the buzzwords, it's so profound that it almost becomes a little intimidating, right? Business owners, when to sell, when not to sell. First question is, why is it the best time to sell?
Yeah, I can't imagine you're having any meetings with your clients and that conversation doesn't come up. What's your plan? What's your,
right.
What are you thinking about in the future? Who's, your succession planning, right? And it goes into some of the policies that they might even be considering for their business.
Correct.
Some of the things that's driving that right now, our firm, we focus a lot on South Florida. So it's kind of a different market where, before when I was in private equity and doing M&A, prior to this, I was doing a lot of Midwestern deals. So everybody wanted a business somewhere in the Midwest, a big factory, some distribution company or some manufacturing facility. Those are the ones people wanted. But now we've identified the South Florida market, which is basically generations of business owners that have passed their businesses down through their family.
So we're talking second, maybe sometimes even third generation.
Yeah, definitely third generation. And you start to think about, okay, maybe the youngest kid doesn't want to run a metals manufacturing company or a trucking business. And now they're seeing that a lot of their friends are getting these high multiples that are driving the market. And what's driving that is low interest rates. There's a lot of money out there. If you're of a good size, you can be a platform company to a private equity firm, which they will, there's a lot of competition for that right now. So
when you use the word platform, what's a platform company?
So a platform company is a company that's has a substantial amount of a good size that you can potentially add businesses to it. So you can use that company, acquire others, grow your market through acquisitions.
So almost be like one vertical. So when you look at a platform, it's a vertical based on multiple different companies.
Yeah, exactly. So, and other things that are driving that space right now is you're thinking, like we said, about your heirs, who's going to take over next. And also, there are a lot of issues right now that business owners are dealing with that they weren't dealing with in the past.
Even like COVID or before COVID?
The pandemic was an issue.
The curveball.
But a lot of businesses did very well. So the ones that did well are now both recession-proof and pandemic-proof. Boom, that's a highly valuable business.
Right, multiples just went up.
Yeah, they're high growth areas. They're sustainable businesses. There are probably some contractual fundings that keep them going, so you have that recurring stream of revenue, and that's what a lot of buyers are looking for.
Well, when you talk about like buyers and you say a lot of money out there, what's besides low interest rates? Like how much money is out there? Because that's another thing you hear, like as far as buzzwords, like a lot of firms, a lot of venture capitalist firms, right? They want to spend money, and they have to spend money. Yeah. Is that kind of the issue? Like you gotta you need that you gotta perform, right?
That's how you collect your fees, by putting it to work, and. Just as an example, last year was the highest. That continued to break records on the amount of fundraising that's been going on in the market. So, about $1.5 trillion of capital right now is invested in private equity funds.
That's a T, the trillion.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to double check that.
That's all new. That's been growing like crazy, and almost anybody can raise a fund right now.
Is there any, like, as far as resources, right? When you're putting these deals together, how much of a due diligence process? Like, when does that start? Like, is it, let's say someone doesn't have, and I love using the word again back to the insurance space. Yeah, we have conversations with a lot of our clients as far as how we're going to structure the insurance program, and these things come up. Well, my plan is to either pass it on to X, or I'm looking to sell. Believe it or not, sometimes we have those conversations. Just because we insure competitors, quote unquote, in mutual in the same industries. But when is it? I mean, is that something everybody should always be looking at? Like as far as having a plan, whether it's a 2, 5, 10-year plan?
Well, as a business owner, you should always be organized, right? And so should be organized. That's that's keeping your books and records clean, preparing accrual-based financials versus cash-based. Investors want to see it on an accrual basis. And also, just kind of there is a lot of cleanup that needs to happen in order before you actually go to market. So kind of and working with an advisor always helps with that. It's kind of like telling you what you need to do, and there might be certain contracts that you need to secure before going to market. So those are all things that add value to your company.
Well, because it's like when you want to sell, it's probably not the word too late, right? But you got to prepare to sell, because even if you get into this process, like with a firm like yours, it's going to take that due diligence process probably take what, 12 months, 18 months, as far as getting you organized to put yourself in a position to.
So a typical process, an M&A process, could take about 8 months. So you have if you're hiring an investment banker, someone to actually run a full process, go out, find buyers, create competition, go through each level of the deal. It could be a full 8 months of time, and you're talking about 1,000 hours of your time to get it done. And you go from the initial steps of really putting together marketing materials for the company, reaching out to prospective buyers, and then creating a process, a process where you start receiving indications of interest. These are people that they don't know a lot about. I mean, they know a lot about your business in general, but they haven't dug in too deep. They've only seen like a P&L
or just
a memorandum, like a packet that's a marketing presentation of your business. And then after that is completed, you'll sort through those individuals who submitted offers and find the best fit. Because right now you're getting into a process where you're basically going to the altar with someone.
Well, because there's different deal structures too, right? Like when you're coming in and structuring deals, a lot of times, look, it's about either taking all the chips off the table or taking some chips, right? And maybe, I know that's a big issue, especially when we're looking at family-owned businesses and there's this huge attachment to the company. Legacy plays come into play, right? And giving up control, not knowing, like how do you kind of become a psychologist at that point, right? How to kind of filter, because for you, you're looking at numbers, right? This is the best deal. But then people make things so personal, specifically up their businesses, that you got to kind of like navigate those waters too.
Yeah, taking chips off the table is always a great option. I mean, the valuations are so high, you can sell a non-controlling equity stake in your business and have an investor that's also right along there with you, vested interest in growing the business. So now you have someone with the know-how, the capabilities, the resources that can provide some good backing to help you grow to the next level. At the same time, you've taken out some cash, put it in a wealth fund, and it can create some long-term wealth for your family.
I mean, I think the one thing about and I can kind of empathize for a lot of business owners is when you go back to say, hey, what's your plan? Majority plan is, hey, I want to grow my business, right? I want to make more money, increase sales. Maybe it's looking at the bottom line, how to cut expenses. But when you're in, I just kind of feel like when you're in it, when you're in the game, right? It's kind of hard to see what is the next step, like, and how to kind of break out of that mold. I mean, sometimes if you're tied into just growing your business, but you don't have those resources, you're kind of on a treadmill.
Yeah.
I mean, I can compare it. Obviously, I'm in the insurance space, and I compare it like almost like at a really like smaller level for agents with books of business and how to kind of break out of that mold. But looking at it from business owner standpoint, you just get stuck in it. That it's hard to see kind of like what is the exploration of the company. And with technology happening so fast, dude, people are getting. It's very scary how in 5 years you may become obsolete.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that quite a bit. There are certain business segments that are going to come into some trouble. So
you're forecasting that as well now. Like, is that something you're telling?
Yeah, there's so it's also a good reason to consider selling if you're in a business where that business is starting to kind of wean off. So, like, for example, middleman type businesses.
Yeah,
I can go directly to the source now. I'm on the internet. I'll go to Alibaba and source my products. I don't need an import-export specialist to facilitate that. So that can make things very that might be a good time to find someone who has a strategic plan that can actually transition that business into something else.
Right.
It's true. Some businesses are not sellable. Some businesses are, there's a key man person. There's one person that drives the entire business. And there's also businesses where it's contract based. So, contractor work, it's always on the next deal. So again, that one person drives that business. So who do you sell it to? If somebody has to step into those shoes to take over that role, own the clients, and if it's always a new client.
Yeah, those are three different levels. And just talking about, it's starting to like make you think, right, as an owner. But most people don't take that into consideration. Yeah. Right. You're right. You're that one contract. You have that one lobbyist. But what if that does spin, right? Yeah. That contract you had for 15, 20 years. But when you look at deals and you're structuring them, I mean, what are kind of, is that one of the, are there any like red flags? And I don't mean it in a negative way, but you looking at from a valuation standpoint, what are like maybe one, two, three things of advice you would tell an owner? These are the three things you need to pay attention to as far as what's going to help your EBITDA, right, down the road.
Yeah. Well, as far as structuring the deal, I mean, you definitely want to get as much cash as you can up front. A lot of times, especially if you're projecting growth in your business, which is what you're driving the valuation on, they're going to want an earnout. An earnout can go 2-3 years down the line, and you're basically stuck with that company and probably taking on a consulting role to make sure to drive that generation of income further. So, those things are always things to consider. Other structures are, how much equity is being rolled over into the new venture,
the new structure,
right? So, and what's your role going to be in that? Because now a lot of these business owners have never had a job before, and now all of a sudden they're going to be reporting to someone.
And maybe put a tie on for the first time, depending on the structure.
Show up on time.
Right. Like kind of like that. When you haven't done it for so long, it's hard to go back and kind of fit. So, I mean, culture must be a big thing to look at too when you're structuring the deals.
It's huge. And we're going back to the fit, right? The person that you're walking up to the altar with. Once you get into a letter of intent, the dynamics of the deal completely shift. So the power goes actually to the buyer's side. Because now you're locked into an exclusive contract, and this buyer has all the right to walk away, to ask for as much information as possible, and you're probably locked in for about 60 days until the closing is supposed to happen. And we've had it. We've had people close. We've had people walk away 24 hours before the deal's supposed to close, before the wiring's supposed to happen.
So they just kind of freaked out. Maybe it was one detail or... Yeah. I mean, do you see a lot of the buyer's remorse on the back end too? Look, deals can go both ways, right?
Yeah. There have been a lot of deals that have gone wrong after acquisition, and that's where you have to really do your due diligence. There's times that people have acquired companies, and we, at a prior firm, there was an instance like that where the contract was not basically set in stone, and it was going to migrate with the seller to a new business.
Right.
So you lose all your revenue.
Right.
So that immediately goes into litigation, and you have to secure that. Those things can sneak up on you.
I mean, so when we look at and I see now on the generational side, we talked about it here, especially South Florida, right, where we're in right now.
Yeah.
You've noticed, I know there's a stat, right? Like it's usually the third generation that sells the family business. Yeah. The second starts thinking about it. And I kind of see it, like looking at my family's business. I mean, you kind of go through this path, but it's hard to kind of be attached to the actual passion the original owner had, right?
Yeah.
Grandfather started the business, it gets inherited to the son or daughter,
right.
Then they have kids. Third generation didn't see. They see they're almost living the rewards, but they didn't see kind of the sacrifice and process.
Yeah, the sacrifice is definitely different for the third generation, right? They've walked into a family business
with an existing structure, with hopefully cash flow, right?
Yeah, with cash flow. I mean, so you're secure. Your next thing is either consider how do you grow this business, and a lot of them are not skilled or either don't have the skills or the passion to do that. So that can create, an issue where, maybe they're just not interested in it. They're just not interested in that business. They want to go be an artist, or they want to go, travel the world. And now there's enough money or just start up something else. You know?
Well, I mean, I think the key is follow your passion, right? I mean, if you're going to do anything, do something that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
If not, what's the point?
If your grandfather started a grocery store, back in the 70s, and grocery stores are great, they make a lot of money, but hey, maybe his kid doesn't want to work at a cash register 7 days a week and make sure that no one's stealing from the business and constantly dealing with buying new products and stocking them and making sure that employees are there. That's another thing. These labor issues that's a whole new.
I mean, I think that becomes the other exhausting piece, the mental fatigue of shifting of people love growing businesses. If you're a salesperson, you love the sales side of it. Now the labor issue becomes kind of what you're bogged down in. I can see how it can cut the passion in any business. Spend
more time interviewing than actually doing what drives the business.
Right.
Which, it's a shame, but I think, hopefully something will change, or that those type of jobs will eventually be replaced by, I don't know, a robot or something.
I was going to ask you too, is it, so from an evaluation standpoint, what's your advice on how often and when should businesses actually go through this piece of how much their business is worth? Because that's something you guys do as well, right?
So evaluated as in I'm
looking at it for what's your business worth? Isn't that something we should look at from evaluation, 2 years, 3 years? I mean, you should kind of, because isn't that consulting work you guys do, doesn't it help you put it in a position where you don't need to just kind of start from scratch? There's always a continuous kind of plan.
So evaluation is, you can definitely hire a valuation expert to come up with an exact valuation of what your assets are worth, what the business is worth, and put together discounted cash flow or something like that. But in actuality, it's really whatever a buyer is willing to pay for it.
Okay.
And
fair point.
Every market is different. And our job is to maximize the valuation. So we go for that market approach 100%, right? And you have kind of a baseline of what you should get based on multiples of EBITDA, and then pro forma financials, and what your growth trajectory should be. So you fight for that, and you start going with the market. And right now, usually the M&A goes in cycles. We've been going on like a 10-year cycle now.
Been a good run
of growth. I mean, it's just continuing to grow. Usually it's like 4 or 5, and then you take a dip, and then you go back. But it's been funded obviously by stimulus and government injected funds and low interest rates and and all of that. So if someone is considering selling their business, they should get a professional opinion on it of what it could be worth, what a potential process could look like, because I can assure you that anyone who tries to go at it alone, a few things can happen. One is they don't know what their business is worth, so obviously the other person on the other side who's a professional at buying businesses,
they could be underselling themselves. 100%.
You don't line up a high school team against a professional football team. You don't do that, right? So that's what that person does. So you even the playing field out by bringing in a professional, they know that they're getting a good deal. So other things that can happen is, like I said, it takes over 1,000 hours of your time to actually run a process, provide the documentation that they're needing.
I mean, you could miss that window if and when, right?
That, or you can take your eye off the ball and now your numbers start slipping, your valuation goes down.
Well, what's the last thing I want to ask you, what's the one, if you had to pick one factor, whether it's, obviously, is it projected future growth? Is it not having debt as a company, cash flow? What's the one thing that you think stands out above anything else?
That doesn't really matter. The debt is the seller's issue, right? Once you close, it's a debt-free deal.
So you're not against businesses just using working capital. That's just not right. That's part of the business.
That's part of the business. But that can get adjusted at the end of the deal. So that you do need to figure out what that number is, because that's going to probably have to stay in escrow for a little bit. But what really drives a business in valuation is, one is size, 2 is recurring revenue. So how much of your business is recurring, your customer concentration. Let's make sure it's not all 40. Let's make sure that no more than 30, maybe 40% of your business is coming from one client.
Right.
That customer goes, your business is done.
Right.
And obviously the industries make a big difference. So, recession-proof, pandemic-proof, how much of that business is sustainable during difficult times. Yeah.
Well, dude, it's an interesting conversation, man. I know that from a buzzword standpoint, it's good to, I think, people, when you're a small business and then you throw the word private equity, right? It's very, it's for me, it's exciting, but I can see how some people get intimidated too. Like the big bad wolf, right? The bad guys are coming in to take over. But it's good to have these conversations to understand that there's multiple deals, there's multiple ways to do it. You may take chips, but this is about growing your business and what is your long-term plan, right?
Yeah. What I do love about this market though is even though, private equities, it can be a little over exciting sometimes, right? Like, oh man, they're coming in from, I don't know, the clouds or something. But this market here, especially with Hispanics and Cuban Americans out in Hialeah or Medley and all that, they don't give a damn. They'll tell que se vayan para acá.
Right.
They will not make any concessions. If you try to drop a price on them, they'll back out of a deal. They just, out of principle, they just won't do it unless their back is really against the wall and they have to.
Right.
They need it, but most likely they'll go down with the ship if they need to, which makes it, it makes it easier to not easier. It's a challenge, and it's made, at least for us, that cultural fit. It's something that we fit in very well with, and those make some of our best clients.
No, I love it, and we've been doing some stuff together. I appreciate you doing this, but that middle market, that family feel, and bringing that value added. So I hope we continue to do stuff together and continue to grow.
Absolutely.
Thanks for doing this, Carlos. Appreciate it.
This is great. Cheers.
God, cheers. It is coffee.